The date is the 14th of September. It's 8:45. You're listening to the Ask TCW podcast, and we're live. Yes, it's under 72 hours until the puck drops at the first home game for the Nottingham Panthers against the Cardiff Devils. And this is the Ask TCW podcast. I'm delighted to say that joining me on this Wednesday is Jono Bullard.
Good evening.
Andy Haywood.
Good evening.
And Tina Taylor.
Hiya.
Hiya. Okay, guys, we've got lots of questions and thank you very much for sending them in so far. Yes, we are live and you can interact with us via Twitter. Just use the hashtag AskTCW and hashtag TCW Live. But what I want to go straight in, guys, is with the news that we heard from the Panthers today about that from Saturday we are going to get a shirt off the back raffle. £1 a ticket. What's your first thoughts on this? Jono, I'll start with you.
I think it's about blooming time that we did this. Every other club does it. I can see it being a massive revenue spinner for the Panthers, and I just can't understand why it hasn't been done earlier, frankly. But yeah, very happy. I will certainly be buying a ticket, and all good stuff. Moving forward. Andy, will you be buying a ticket?
I'll probably buy them every now and then. Yeah, certainly. I'm not going to say that I'll be buying them every game or whatnot. But I kind of echo Jono's thoughts. I think it is about time. I think one of the main reasons why we've not done it is obviously because of the shirt supplier, and whether it's down to the shirt supplier or the Panthers themselves, their sort of tardiness or whatever, but we could never really get them in time for the season. So to lose a player shirt, at the end of the game and then have to get it replaced, I suppose was probably asking a bit too much. But I think it's good. I think, like Jono said, I think it'll be a fantastic money spinner for them. You've only got to look at the money that was raised when we raffled off Penner's shirt and Jonathan Zion's shirt, which I didn't agree with because of where the money was going, but fair enough. And they do make money, and like John said, every other club does it, so it's about time we did.
Tina, surely you'll be spending £1 to get a shirt, won't you?
Yeah, why not? Well, I buy a 50-50 ticket, and I've never won that, so I may as well. I may as well go in headlong into a shirt raffle with the similar misguided optimism.
Right, okay. I think that obviously that subject leads us really on to our first question, which comes from Max Artist via Facebook. And what I want you to do, guys, is imagine, you're the Bond villain, you've got your cat on your lap, you're stroking it, and basically he asks, if you had control for a day, what 3 things would you change about the team? Or to put it another way, what do you see other teams in the world of hockey doing that we should? Tina.
Well, one of the things that a lot of teams do better than us is social media. So I think there needs to be a lot more of a relaxed attitude and a bit more free rein for those that are employed to run Panthers social media. I think it's still a little bit restrictive at times for me. I prefer to see a bit more fun, a bit more light-hearted banter going on between the various Elite League Twitter accounts. So it's a bit more of a relaxed attitude to social media would definitely be a policy of mine. I think it's possibly time to try and organise some in-period entertainment again. There was a very paltry effort a few years back, as I recall, which was a bit naff, to be honest. Done well. I mean, other teams have shown that you can do that. I think there's Coventry have done their sort of on ice relays at times. They do their chuck a puck. Loads of teams do chuck a puck. You've got what's the bubble football. I can't remember what you call it, especially, but the I think you know what I mean, don't you?
The Zorb.
Zorb football, that's it. Zorb football, yeah. So I think there is more to be done in the in-period entertainment. In regards to a third thing, not quite sure. That was the two things that immediately sprung to mind. But those would be my two starters, I think.
Fair dues. Jono, you've had many a year to think about what you would like to change with the Nottingham Panthers. What three things for you?
One thing, everything. No,
it's all doom and gloom.
No,
no.
I think I've got to agree with most of Tina's choices. The social media side, let Callum have the reins and let him run with it. I think the media, which is terrible, and it is, and also the website, which is poor.
Okay, sorry if we've just drowned everybody there with misery, but I think there's some good things there, obviously, that Jono said. Let us know what you think. Obviously get in touch with us via Twitter. AskTCW is the hashtag. Moving on, obviously both of Jono and Tina mentioned social media there, and that kind of leads us on to our next question, which comes via email, and it's from Stephen Fleming. And he says, I have noticed during the summer that many fans have been quite critical of the social media coverage by the club. What are the Cat's Whiskers' thoughts on this? Would you put it down to complacency on the club's part? Attendances are up each year, so they must be doing something right. Perhaps it may be other teams needing to work harder to keep and attract fans. Alternatively, could it be down to our club having more of a traditional approach, or do some think it's simply old-fashioned? Is it likely to rebound on the club in the long term? Now, Andy, just 24 hours ago, there was this massive storm that cancelled the football game between Manchester City and Borussia Mönchengladbach, and the Manchester Storm Twitter was all over it, saying it was their fault, storm coming, etc. But what's your views in regards to Stephen Fleming's email?
To be honest, as much as it might not be the popular answer, I kind of think that he touches upon it in the sense that other teams do have to work slightly harder because they don't have the fans that come in week in, week out. And, I don't think that excuses our lack of anything for, maybe not so much this year because it looks like it's on the up, but certainly the past few years, it doesn't excuse the fact that we were the last, to join Twitter seemingly, and utilise it in a decent way. And I still think we can improve in what we are doing. But I do think that in a sense he is right that other teams do perhaps have to rely on it a bit more to try and create that buzz and get people through the doors, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's great for those teams. It's a fantastic and useful tool, and you've got to start thinking that realistically we should be utilising it a lot better ourselves for that reason to maintain the interest, because there is a shift in the fan base that I've noticed in the past few years where sort of the older guard are sort of not necessarily losing interest, but they're sort of distancing themselves a lot more from it as such. And obviously it's breeding in a newer generation of fans. But if they can utilise the social media to keep hold of those ones that are starting to become a bit aggrieved, in the way things are done and that, then surely it's a good thing.
Jono, what's your feeling? Because obviously, yourself and Tina has written a blog about the new social media. Callum Chambers obviously taking over, and the positive. What's your thoughts on the social media coverage? Because you've seen teams come and go out the Elite League and English hockey, like the Manchester Storm. Do you think that we're doing what we are a traditional club?
We are a traditional club, but I think we could do so much more on the social media part, and I think it has got better since Callum took over. You know, these more interaction going on, a bit more engagement, a few more gifts, a bit more humour in there, which is really good to see. However, when you look at someone like the Manchester Storm, obviously a new club, they have to attract fans, they have to engage fans, but their social media is absolutely spot on and has been since they came back into the league. Now, as I said, they have to get fans into their building, and by engaging with them, that's how they will do it. We don't have to do it as so much because, like Stephen says, and he's quite right, we have the fans, and at the end of the day, it could be seen, do we really need to? The reality is, we are getting 6,000 people in the building for every home game, and that doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. And we are winning trophies on a regular basis. So the reality is, does anything really need to change? Now, looking at the bigger picture, yes, it does. We have to engage fans. The club need to engage with fans better. They're not doing that at the minute. I think Callum is a step towards that changing, but I think a lot more needs to change as well.
Okay, and I'm going to stick with you, Jono, because it kind of revolves into the same subject, really. But we've had a question from @Marty Powers, which everybody will know is Ant from Nottingham Panthers Hockey Live. And he says, Panthers match write-ups never seem to mention anything that the away team did. Should they be more akin to newspaper reports that give a balanced view, or is it content purely for the website, so it doesn't really matter? Jono, you set up the Cat's Whiskers a long time ago, and you have a passion for writing. What's your feeling regarding the Panthers matches write-ups?
I think he's got it spot on. They don't mention anything the away team did, and I think that's wrong. 2 teams take part in a match. It takes 2 teams to put a game on. So you need to talk about what the away team did, and not without silly excuses as to why they scored or silly excuses as to why they won. A good, neutral report would go down well. I mean, it's like he says, is the content purely for the website, so it doesn't matter? Yes, it does matter. That website can be viewed all over the world, not just by Panthers fans. So yes, it probably does need to. They do need to have a slight towards the Panthers, as it's the Panthers website, but they do need to be a bit fairer and a bit more, how can I say, probably respectful to the opposition at times.
Okie dokie. Thank you very much for your question, and we'll go completely different. We'll move away from the media side of things, and we'll go to maybe a little bit of a positivity news and a positivity question. So, Tina, I'm going to ask you, any news on when McGrattan is likely to arrive?
I don't know.
well, Reese Hancock from Facebook wants to know.
He wants to know. All right then, Reese. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, he's been announced to signing, sort of at this late stage. He's then got to, send his passport off, apply for his visa, wait for that to come back. And I mean, I suppose it's, we can maybe sort of optimistically think it won't take as long as some of the players that we've already had to wait for. So I mean, Brad Moran, it seemed like we were waiting an absolute age for him to turn up, despite him being a returning player. So perhaps the visa applications are not quite so hefty at the moment. So I would love to be wrong, but I don't think we'll see him this weekend. I mean, maybe optimistically next weekend. I would guess, but it is a guess.
I mean, Andy, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago on the podcast when we had the question mark from Brian McGrattan himself. And let's be honest, this is a guy that could be the heartbeat of our side. When do you think he's going to arrive?
I don't think he'll be here this weekend at all. I think if there was any, and I know that we don't like to, say things, are happening before they happen, but I do think that, if there was a chance he was going to be here, he's a ticket seller. He's bums on seats, and as much as I don't think we're going to need it, judging by the website on ticket sales, But if you've got a player like Brian McGrattan making his debut, you want to publicise that, and that's why I don't think that there's any chance really of him being here for this Saturday. Part of me does think that it would be sort of poetic if his debut was against Sheffield, the home game against Sheffield the week after. So that's when I think we'll more likely see him. But obviously, these things can take time to get these as annoying as it is. So it's just a case of waiting and seeing.
Okie dokie. Let's hope he's here as soon as possible, because I'm pretty much certain all the Panthers Nation are excited to see him wearing that 13 shirt. But thank you very much for your question. And sorry, Reese, I do apologise. Moving on. Sam from Facebook, Sam Holmes asks, what are you looking forward to seeing the most from the team this season? And what are the chances of silverware? JB, go for that.
Ooh, well, chances of silverware, I suppose, are the same as any other season. You've got to think we've got a chance. We have one of the bigger budgets in the league, and last season we won the Challenge Cup and the playoffs, and we'll be defending them. Hopefully, we'll be making a challenge at the league title. Winning trophies is certainly not a given, but I think we will be up there challenging for them. With regards his first question, what am I looking forward to? I'm looking forward, actually, to seeing the other teams and how everybody competes with everybody else. I think this has the potential to be one of the closest seasons in regards parity of the teams that there's ever been in the Elite League. I think there's a good chance that it could be a very close league from top to bottom. I don't think there'll be as big a point spread as there usually is from the top team to the bottom team. So I'm looking forward to see how competitive it is, certainly over the first couple of months.
Tina, what are you looking for from this season and the team that we've signed?
Same thing as every year, I suppose. That elusive second modern day Panthers League title, that would be lovely. Just seeing how the team get on. I just love whenever it comes to a new season, I love the coming together. The just watching the team develop and play with each other. So that's pretty much what I am looking forward to. Although, I suppose I am looking forward to seeing Brian McGrattan play in this league as well.
Buddy.
Will you? Well, you're quite close to the ring, to the ice, aren't you? So
yes,
will you be reaching over for a sly touch if you can, or
reaching over to touch his sweaty beard and beg for a bunch of flowers? That's what she's going to be doing.
I bet you'll be buying a ticket for the shirt raffle when it's McGrattan.
Yeah, along with everybody else in the building.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got some strong competition, I'm afraid.
I've actually just received a message from somebody that will remain anonymous, but they said that they're looking for the Grand Slam. So that would be the second Grand Slam.
They need to remain anonymous.
That's the second Grand Slam in the last, is it 3 or 4 years?
Come on, name and shame. Name and shame.
They know who they are. Anyway, Andy, what are you looking for? Should we be looking for the league title? And let's not forget, we're actually in we're in the Continental Cup. Should that be a focus? There was the Nottingham Post article a few months ago from Matt Davies with Neil Black saying that was a priority. Should that be a priority, or does it have to be the league and then the cups, etc.?
Well, I think ultimately, personally, success is what I'd look for, whether that be in the cups or whether that be in the league. I appreciate that the league is sort of the holy grail, as it were, and so obviously there's more stock in winning the league than there is in winning the cups. I actually think that with the news that, if I'm right, and I might be wrong, but I'm sure we talked about it on the last podcast, that the winners of the Continental Cup will be in the CHL.
That is correct.
Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
So obviously, I think that that's a great chance for us to get back into the CHL and also to have that extra representation of the league playing in the top competition in Europe. And, yes, it will be difficult, and yes, it's a lot more games and things like that, but, I think we've got a decent chance in that regards because of the fact that the CHL's taken all the really good teams out of it, as it were. But yeah, I think ultimately, same as every year, the league will always be the main goal. And for me, it's not necessarily about winning it. Yes, winning it would be fantastic, but just having a season where we're there consistently all the way through the season, competing for it. I think that realistically is what most people want. So I think the league will be the big one, followed by the cups.
Okie dokie. You mentioned a good thing there. I think with the Continental Cup, like you said, the winners do go into the Champions Hockey League next season, similar to what they do in football with the Europa League to the Champions League, and that saw a lot of teams take the Europa League a lot more seriously. Jono, just very quickly, do you think that changes now then the fact of how you approach the Continental Cup?
I don't think it changes too much because we've still got quite a long haul to win it. We've got to get through 3 rounds, so we've got to win the group in Jaca in Spain. We've then got to become in the top 2 of the group that will take place in Denmark, and then we've got to win the super final. Now, I think the biggest chance we could have is if the super final is hosted at the NIC. I actually had a look at the dates a couple of weeks ago, and there's nothing on at the arena that weekend. So I think that could be a possibility if we get through. And that gives us the best chance. Plus, you've also got the gravitas of it being the first UK club to win the Continental Cup, which would be huge. And then you've got Champions Hockey League qualification, which is sort of the icing on the cake. So I think it will be something in the back of their minds, but I don't think it's something that will come to the fore until we get to the final, if we get to the final.
Okie dokie. Thank you very much for your question, Sam. Let us know what you're looking forward to seeing the most from this season, and should we be expecting silverware? And if you're listening right now, get in touch. The hashtag is AskTCW. Let us know your thoughts. Just sticking with the Panthers in general at the moment, and we'll move to the cage for the next question. It comes from Dill1015, and they ask quite simply, who do you think will be our top points scorer this year? Tina?
I think Carter's looking good.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one, isn't it? Really, because sorry to interrupt, but because we talked about in the previous podcast this week about how we had, I believe it was 7 scorers over the weekend. So if that carries on throughout the season, it'll be a tough one to decide. But who do you think? Sorry.
Yeah, so I think the early favourite for me would be Carter. I think when the you get the right line chemistry going on, anything can happen. But yeah, Carter would be my punt at this stage.
Andy, give us a name.
Nicky Forok.
Really? Because he's started quite slowly so far, hasn't he?
Well, yeah, he seemingly has. But I was at the Coventry game in the Challenge Cup, and he's really small. But there's just his vision looked really good, and there's something about him. I just think we could be seeing a player that's not necessarily going to be scoring lots of goals, but hopefully will be setting lots of goals up. So yeah, I think there's a chance he might be the guy.
Okie dokie. And Jono?
I think Carter is a good shout, and as I said before, I was in Gap a few weeks ago, and they were devastated to lose him. And he scored a lot of points in the League Magnus. I think he'll be up there. Jeff Brown, I think, is someone who will score quite a few points as well and has started well. And Nicky Forok, who has already been mentioned. I think there's probably 4, 5, maybe 6 players who have a possibility. You can't overlook the likes of David Clark. You can't overlook Stephen Schultz. You know, it's very, very difficult to actually come up with a name. But if somebody asked me to put it on the line, I think I would have to go with Matt Carter.
Okie dokie. I'm going to stick my neck out and say Chrissy Lawrence. I think the goal that he scored. Yeah, I think the goal that he scored up in Brayhead was, as I mentioned on the previous podcast this week, was very Lawrence-esque of a couple of seasons ago. And if that's the kind of role that he's going to play, then I believe he scored 63 points that season. He could be well in with a shout, but it'll be interesting to see. But thank you very much for your question. Moving on and kind of sticking with players, and we'll go back to Ant at Marty Powers. And Andy, I'm going to ask you this one. Why aren't all players' departures mentioned, regardless of any fallouts? Surely letting the fans know should be the aim.
Well, I kind of disagree in a lot of, not necessarily a lot of aspects of that question, but I just think, it's no real, it shouldn't come as a real shock that usually these players are on short-term deals. And, I mean, the first year I came to hockey, the summer was really surreal. It was surreal because obviously I'd never seen a wholesale changes in the team in the summer before, because it was just so new as someone coming into the game. But I think because all the players are on relatively short contracts, whether it's a year, maybe 2, I just think that there's no real need. You sort of expect that if a player's not on a 2-year contract, there's a fair chance that they're not coming back. Yes, there are certain players where you expect something. So when Brandon Benedict went back to Belfast, you expect, you expect the fact that there's going to be something on the website or something on social media, with thank you very much for all his hard work and service. But if when Joe Jensen wasn't coming back, do we need to put on the website that Joe Jensen's not coming back next year? I just think it's horses for courses. I think if they've done something particularly good, or they've been legends or heroes or whatever you want to call them, then fair enough. But I just think for every player, it's a bit much when you consider that the majority of them will be on 1-year deals anyway. Okie dokie.
Hopefully that has answered your question there. And
can I just butt in there because I disagree slightly. I just think it's good manners.
Okay.
I just think it's good manners to just say so and so will not be returning to the team next season. So that's all it needs. That's it.
Okay. I mean, just to counteract that, do you think that? I mean, do we as fans, should we know literally everything?
No, we shouldn't know everything, but I think some things. So if someone is leaving and not coming back, just say this player is not coming back next season. I think that's all it has to be. You don't have to know the ins and outs or the reasons why. It's just as simple as that.
Okie dokie. A couple of quick messages from people that are listening to us right now. We have somebody that's listening in Tesco's, which they say is very dedicated. So thank you very much for your ears. And also Judith Cooper has got in touch, just saying, isn't it about time you did a webcast for your away fans? I mean, yes. The webcast is a big debate, but it doesn't really seem like it's going to happen in the near future, does it?
Yes, we should, but we won't.
Yes. Just as a quick point on that, and I do apologise if I'm speaking out of turn, but when I was busy trying to buy the Flyers webcast at the weekend in the middle of a field, I was just sort of going through 24/7's website, and there is a section where you have to click on for Fife Flyers website, and just underneath it there is a link for Manchester Storm webcast.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks like my prediction of last season is correct. They are going to beat us to it.
Well, I mean, I think that's a good point that you put, because somebody did ask them on Twitter, and I saw that it was something that they were going to look into. Not right now, something that it is in their agenda for the future. But if there is anybody listening from the Manchester Storm, maybe Neil Russell or somebody that works there,
he's far too busy to listen to us.
Yeah, he works 25 hours a day. How can he find time to listen to us?
Silly me, he is the hardest working man in Altrincham. But if anybody is listening, or anybody if you're a Manchester Storm fan and you've seen something that your club has tweeted, let us know. Get in touch. The hashtag is AskTCW and our Twitter handle is @CatsWhiskersTV. Okay, we'll start moving through a few because I believe there is only about 15 minutes left. But we'll go to Ray Monaghan's question on Facebook. Big fan of the show and a very nice gentleman, a Clan fan. He says, with so much parity and competitiveness between teams these past few years, is the league still the most suitable metric to determine who the best of the bunch is? Jono?
At the moment, yes. But I think the conferences, as they are getting closer and closer and stronger. So maybe it will have to come to a point, not right now, I don't think, but in a few seasons' time, if the conferences are still there, that it may be the conference champions, and then the conference champions play each other to determine the overall champion. I can see that happening. You've seen over the past few seasons since we've had the conferences how teams have got stronger and closer, and parity is getting much closer. First season of the conferences, Panthers played the Gardner Conference teams and lost once. That ain't going to happen. No team is going to be able to do that at all. I will gladly hold my hands up at the end of the season if I'm wrong, but I would say that out of the 20 games that the Erdart teams play against the Gardner teams, I think anyone getting a .75 record against them is doing very, very, very well.
I mean, just on the conferences there, obviously they're going to expand. We're getting a new team next season. So how do you think the conferences will work in that aspect? Do you think it will then be fair if the winners do face each other to determine kind of like the league winners?
Well, I suppose that depends what happens, whether it becomes an 11-team league or another team joins, or it's split out into 3 conferences. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But we know Milton Keynes are coming in, so there's going to be 11 teams. We don't know if anybody else is going to join to make it 12. If it's 12, you have 2 conferences of 6 or 3 conferences of 4. But it's going to be very interesting to see how it is made up once Milton Keynes join. Now, I remember a Periscope from Simsey in the summer that said Neil Black had put in a really, really good suggestion for how it could work when Milton Keynes, Milton Keynes joined, but nothing has come out since then. So I guess we'll have to see. But I think at the moment, the league, to go back to Ray's question, the league is the best way to determine who is the best. Okie
dokie. Thank you very much for your question, Ray. Okay, moving on to a Elite League kind of general question that we've had in, and it comes from Kenwyn Jones at Kenwyn64 on Twitter. And Tina, I'm gonna give this to you because you know a fair bit about what's happened, and you can let the listeners know. So Kenwyn asks, should clubs allow players to publicly accuse another club's officials of wrongdoing? #Rosehill.
Well, saying I know a lot about it is probably a little bit overstated. I know what I've read and I know what I've listened to, so it just sounds like there's a bit of tension going on between the Clan and the Devils. People involved in the clubs have got involved in that, whether they're standing up for their own integrity or the integrity of their club. It's quite... It's a little bit. It's descended into a little bit of unprofessionalism, I think, is where it's at the moment. I mean, yeah, there's an awful lot of hearsay. There's an awful lot of stuff that nobody really knows. We've apparently Dave Sims has done a I'm assuming it's a periscope. He's indicated that it's all going to come out into the open soon, and it's all some of it seems to be centred around Jay Rosehill up at the Clans, and then there's obviously the whole sort of debacle surrounding Hendricks fighting Andrew Lord and then refusing to shake his hand. It's all a little bit. From the outside looking in, it seems a little bit churlish and a little bit, playground. But obviously, again, I will stress, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know what's happened in the summer, and people are human. So when they feel that they've been done wrong too, then they're gonna stand up for themselves. And with the rise of social media now, it's all too easy to just throw your dirty laundry out for the whole world to see. So should the clubs allow players to publicly accuse another club's officials of wrongdoing? Probably not, but the thing is, you're sort of stepping into the whole freedom of speech kind of territory if you start muting people and muzzling them. So you have to tread very carefully, but I think everybody involved, when there is a situation like this, just needs to be very careful what they're saying to who and how they handle the situation. And obviously the clubs, employing the players involved, they have to manage it well.
Okie dokie. We'll see what happens regarding hashtag Rosehill and Rosehill Gate in the coming days, I would imagine. Okay, let's get through a few more before we finish quickly. We've had a question in from Helen Bullard at Helen B82, and I think we'd all like to wish Helen a very happy birthday today. And,
cost me a bloody fortune.
She asks, do you feel that the EIHL is worthy of a CHL spot? Well, Helen, I'm not going to ask anybody that question because we covered that in our previous podcast, so you'll have to listen again. Moving on. A question from Richard Martin at Twist Again 1964. Hope you're well, Richard. Thank you for your question. Would being recognised as an official club-affiliated podcast be desirable, and if so, why? Now, Jono, I'm going to give you this one because obviously, the Cat's Whiskers was yours and Paul's idea a long time ago, set it up, etc. How do you feel about that title, if it ever came about, of official?
It's a difficult one. Would I like us to be official? Yes, it would be nice. It would be nice to get recognition from the club. Would I want us to be official? Probably not. Because the thing is, what I wouldn't want is to say, Panthers to say, you become the official podcast of the Panthers and we accept. And then we have to water down what we say because we are officially affiliated to the club. I wouldn't want that to happen. I would want us to be able to constructively criticise where it's necessary, as well as praise when it's necessary. And I think with an official tag, we'd have to be very, very careful. So I would welcome an offer, but I'm not sure it's something I would accept. I mean, I don't know how the rest of you guys feel. It wouldn't be my decision. It would be a decision that we make between all of us. So
if we'd have been official last season, I'd have been fired.
I mean, Andy, Jono makes a good point, I think, and we'd just like a bit more interaction, really, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the sort of the ideal scenario is that we get that recognition, and we get access to players. We're not looking for exclusives, and we're not looking for anything relatively juicy or anything. But it'd just be nice just to get some sound bites to put out there. So I agree with what Jono says. It would be a difficult discussion because like you say, once you become official, you're then part of the team. You're scrutinised an awful lot more and everything else, and obviously you have to fall in line with the company's ideals and policies. So it would be tough, but like I say, ultimately, from a sort of end goal point of view, for in my opinion, is it would just be nice just to get that sort of that recognition, whether it's just being allowed to talk to person X once a week, or just being able to use anything from a club. It'd just be really nice.
That's all we want. All we'd like is to talk to someone from the playing staff or coaching staff once or twice a week. That's it. We're not asking for the world. It'd just be good to get their insight. Probably not necessarily on this podcast, but certainly the weekend, the Monday podcast and the Thursday podcast.
Okie dokie. Right. Thank you very much to everybody that has sent in your questions. Please, this podcast is nothing without you guys listening to us live, or if you listen to it as a general podcast. So please do interact with us using the hashtag AskTCW. We will try and get through as many questions as possible, and if we don't get to answer your question this week, then we'll try and answer it the following week. So let us know what you think to the questions that we've answered this evening. Get in touch via Twitter. I'm just going to end up in one final question, because I know we've only got a couple of minutes left, but it's a really serious question that I think we all need to kind of answer, and it comes from Chris Ellis on Twitter, and he wants to know what happens if Channel 4 come in and bid for the Cat's Whiskered podcast. Will you leave Spreaker?
The what?
Will the Cat's Whiskers podcast?
Put your teeth back in, Lord.
I will put my teeth back in. Will you leave Spreaker, and will the presenters go too? Well, I can safely say on my behalf, Chris, my soggy bottom isn't going anywhere. On that note, I would like to just say thank you very much to Jono Bullard for joining me this evening.
Yeah, it's been an absolute honour and a pleasure.
Tina Taylor, thank you very much for joining us.
It's been emotional, TTFN.
And Andy, thank you very much to you as well.
No bother.
Don't forget, guys and girls, there is a podcast tomorrow where we will be looking forward to the Cardiff game at home and obviously the Steelers game away. But from me, thank you very much for listening, and good night.